You're listening to the AmWritingFantasy podcast. In today's publishing landscape, you can reach fans all over the world. Query letters are a thing of the past. You don't even need a literary agent. There is nothing standing in the way of making a living from writing. Join two best-selling authors who have self-published more than 20 books between them. Now, on to the show with your hosts, Autumn Burt and Jasper Schmidt.
Hello, I'm Jesper.
And I'm Autumn.
This is episode 93 of the AmWritingFantasy podcast, and there are loads of well-meaning and also pretty good writing advice out there, but there are also those that we just, hate.
Yes.
And we're going to share 10 such examples today, and hopefully, I guess, in the process.
I was gonna say, because we split this up. We each came up with 5, but knowing us, we could have, I expect at least 2 to overlap. That is my guess. There's a chance, though, it could be all 5, but hopefully we're gonna manage at least 8 pieces of unique advice, if not 10.
Yeah, we'll see. But we try to prepare 10 examples at least, and hopefully in the process we'll also manage to, debunk some of the, shall we say, less strong advice that exists out there.
I think that'll be fantastic, and it'll be a ton of fun to hear what you find is the worst advice.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to get into this.
Yes, but first, so I haven't talked to you for a week. How are things over on the other side of the Atlantic?
It's good. It's another one of those coming out of a busy weekend. I don't know. That happens way too often, it feels like. But Saturday, my older son had friends over for his birthday party.
Oh, excellent.
He's turning 12, so you can almost guess what activity they had planned for this party, can't you? If you're boys, only boys for the birthday party and turning 12. There's almost only one thing that they can do.
All right, I'm not around 12-year-old boys, so I don't know. I claim total ignorance.
It was they were just playing computer.
Okay,
everybody brought their own computer, and then they just sat there for 8 hours and played computer.
Alrighty then.
That's in their mind. That's a party, you know.
I mean,
we older people don't understand.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you playing through the internet connection? You're already playing with your friends, so what's the matter if they're in the same room?
Then you're sitting next to each other, where normally you're not. So that's a huge difference, apparently.
I live in this era, and I can't wrap my brain around the things people do, so this is not a good sign. No. I always knew I was born in the wrong time period.
Yeah, I think we were. Yeah. And on Sunday, I was out at a soccer tournament with my youngest. But
nice.
Actually, then in the afternoon, our oldest actually started to feel pretty bad.
Oh, no.
So, he had a sore throat yesterday.
Oh, dear.
And this morning he felt a bit constricted in his breathing.
No.
So... Yeah, so we're supposed to have another birthday party for family and friends this coming weekend. So I called the doctor this morning, and we basically booked a COVID-19 test for him. So he's going to get tested tomorrow.
Oh,
I don't think it's the coronavirus. I don't think so. I think it's just like normal fall flu kind of thing, yeah. I think. But I don't know, so we better be on the safe side. So... we're going to get him tested tomorrow.
That's good. Well, fingers crossed for him.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be okay.
Poor thing.
Yeah, that's not good. So he's just been home today. He's been watching YouTube for 11 hours today. And I was asking him at some point, don't you want to do something else? Could you maybe read a book or something? No. He was like, what? No.
No. Wow, I just can't imagine. I mean, I was alone for, 3.5 weeks, and I barely watched an hour of Netflix a day, so I guess I just don't have
been
that
working
bug.
all the time.
Yeah, but getting stuff done, it was fantastic. I cranked off some big things on our to-do list, so I'm not complaining.
Yeah, you did, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all the fun and games are over. My husband came home yesterday, so he is doing his darndest to make sure my life is much more distracted.
I hope in a good way.
In a good way, as is the job of all spouses. Oh, we haven't seen each other for 3.5 weeks, so it's like you just get into something and he like mentions, once you get your attention, you just start writing a sentence and it's like, oh, but did you like read? Oh, yeah, we should just put the stuff away for a couple days and just talk, and that'll be good.
Yeah, it's always a bit weird, and I think at least I've mentioned it to you before, but I don't remember if we talked about it on the podcast as well. But my wife is from Finland, so when she goes back to Finland once in a while, it's always like the first couple of days, it's like, oh yeah, great, you can do all the stuff that you just want to do for yourself and whatnot. But then like 3-4 days into it, it always feels a bit like, this is a bit boring now.
Yeah, that's what I think. Since probably not since we moved in together. This is the longest I have been alone in 20 years. So there was definitely some like, I had to find my pace again and find out what it's like to be me again and alone. And once I did, I was fine until about dinner time. That's my weakness, where I'm like, I want to talk to somebody. So,
Yeah.
yeah, he was definitely missed, and I'm happy to have company again.
Yeah, and I'm sure the dog is happy that he returned as well.
He was so happy he almost dissolved into smaller versions of himself.
That's the weird thing about trying to imagine what it is like inside a dog's mind, right? You don't understand that this person will come back. Probably the dog just think that he disappeared.
Yeah,
There was like I saw a light in the forest yesterday. There was probably a UFO, and it took him.
Yes.
He's never gonna come back.
Nope. And he did. So
I just
he
know
is
it.
Thrilled.
If I only could explain this to my owner, she doesn't get it. She's just
we have to go
working like
find
nothing
him.
happened.
Yeah, I know. Oh, he kept me busy too.
A week on the internet with the Writing Fantasy podcast.
So I mentioned it a few episodes back, but our very special giveaway on Patreon has gone live today.
So exciting. I always love it when we have these little special things because, well, one, they make us do something a little more different and challenging, but it's just fun. It's such a great group over there.
It is indeed. And we've decided to give away a golden ticket to the world building course that we are just about done with now. So that means that there will be a chance to win completely free access to the world building course.
And it's such a cool course, which I can say because I just finished building it on Saturday. So now it's over to you to look through it. But it's just so beautiful and so in depth. It's an amazing course.
That's for sure.
Yes. It covers so much with putting it together. I'm like, I can see why this took us about 2 years to put together because it is just so in depth. So yeah, a golden ticket. This is a really phenomenal golden ticket. But it's not the only thing because we're going to also do something for everyone who joins because that's just who we are.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the golden ticket will actually give you an exclusive VIP early access to the course, so that's pretty neat already. But yeah, as Autumn says there, because we will only draw one winner for the golden ticket, so yeah, we just felt like that's a bit sad for everybody else. And what about the existing Patreon supporters? We want to give something to them as well.
Exactly. So we came up with the idea of doing we haven't quite sure. We talked about a webinar or pre-recording it, but it's going to be a special event just for everyone who's on Patreon.
Yeah, we decided to name it The Reader's Journey. And this is basically how we are using paid advertising to warm up the audience over several different steps. I don't know if I would call this stuff that we are doing here like a new thing, but it's definitely a bit of a different way of thinking about paid advertising. So it's like putting your ads into a system and have a plan about what you're advertising and when you're doing it and why. And we're going to share all of that in this exclusive either it's going to be a pre-recorded like course module on it, or it's going to be a webinar which we will record. One of the two at least. But we're going to make this available to everybody who signs up to support us on Patreon before the 19th of October. That is 2020, in case you are listening to this much later. But you have to sign up before the 19th of October to get this stuff. And of course, all existing Patreon supporters will get it automatically. So if that sounds good to you, you can just follow the link to Patreon in the show notes here. And it's only going to cost you $1 a month, actually. And I would say that's a pretty damn cheap course module that you can get your hands on there.
And it's a very cool advertising system. So it's definitely worth $1 at least. And oh my goodness, for $1, you could potentially win the world building course. So especially with the special exclusive access, it's going to be very limited anyway. So it's a really great deal.
Yeah, I think so. All right. What else on the internet?
Oh, have you seen many people have been joining the AmWritingFantasy group? I don't think we've been able to keep up with the people.
No, I have to admit that I am struggling a bit to keep up in the sense, of course, I could just go in there every day, but it's like, I feel like I approve 8 to 10 people, and then 4 hours later there's another batch sitting there. So it's like it's difficult to keep up, but it's a good problem to have. This is not complaining at all. It's nice that a lot of people want to join the AmWritingFantasy Facebook group. So I really like it, but at the same time, it's keeping us busy, letting people in.
It is. So if anyone gets caught waiting, we're sorry. It's just wow. There's been so many, but the conversations, I mean, just, one of the recent ones was like, could a plucky teenager defeat your big bad? There's fun things, and that's already got 27 comments, and that's only 2 hours old. So, yeah, they're just kind of having fun. And of course, there's lots of encouragement and support, and as well as the fun posts. So I just love it over there. But yeah, I between sleep and work and, eating, I'm not over there as much as needed, and Luke, thank goodness our moderator, has got our backs, because it does seem that way.
Thank God for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very lively and active group. So, but we do keep the entry sort of that we have to approve people for join. We do keep that enabled. Of course, if we wanted to make it easy on ourselves, we could just disable that and let everybody join. But we don't want to do that, because we want to keep it pretty moderated in the group as well. And we do like to do a nice welcome message to everybody who joins us when they come in. So we try to keep it very moderated, and making sure that we don't see all the... Well, we do see sometimes the post about self-promotion, but we delete them pretty quickly when we see them.
This is a group for chatting about writing and the problems of being a writer, not promoting your books.
And on to today's topic.
It seems that listeners have liked in the past when we've done our alternating lists order. So I think, like we said at the top of the episode, I think we should try to do that same thing here today.
I think that sounds good. And I was kind of prepared. So I did mine in... I don't know if you would call it ascending or descending order, but from what I don't think is quite as bad to what I think is some of the advice that drives me crazy. So I don't know if you have yours in that order.
Same. I've done the same thing.
See, that's why I'm saying we're gonna have some overlapping. That's just the way we both think.
Well, yeah. I must admit, I'm a bit curious if we do have overlapping or not. But the last few times in the past when we've done these kind of episodes, we have had quite a lot of overlap.
Yes.
But I don't know. Let's see if this might be the one that breaks the mold. I don't know.
Okay, we'll see.
But so if we cover 5 each, and if we cover 5 each, and then maybe, if we can, maybe we can say, when we cover each of them, maybe we can say a bit about, give a bit of justification on why we chose the ones we did. Or something.
Oh, yes, I hope so, because I have to explain some of mine. I have specific reasons why. They might be good advice, but there's parts of it that I just think are bad. So we'll have to see how much we overlap. I'm going with 2. I'm thinking at least 2 of ours will overlap, but we'll see.
Okay, I'll guess 1 then.
Okay. We'll see. We'll both be wrong, don't worry. All right, do you want to start?
Yeah, maybe. But I will. But I was also thinking that maybe at the end of it, maybe we should try. So at the end of it, we've heard all 10, maybe some of them overlapping, I don't know. But maybe we should then try to agree on one that we like from our combined list of 10 items can jointly agree on. This is the one we hate the most.
Okay, sounds
Would that
good.
be fun?
That'll be fun. And just to be sure, I actually wrote down my favorite piece of advice if we have to end on a better note instead of really bad advice.
That's good.
Yes, I thought that might be a fun one. All right, so we might have to end on a favorite advice note. So there was definitely some things not to ignore.
Okay, good. Yes, I was not being positive in my preparation at all, so I only have negative ones.
Oh, you'll have to think of you have probably about 15-20 minutes to come up with one piece of positive advice.
Now you're putting me on the spot.
I should have warned you.
Well, where would the fun be in that?
Exactly.
It's much more fun to see me squirm and scrape for try to find something.
Yes, you'll be doing some quick Googling while I'm giving my bad advice.
No, or I'll let you go first and then I'll agree with you.
Oh, that's not fair. But you could probably do that.
Okay, so you want to hear my number 5?
Yes, I want to hear your number 5.
Okay, so number 5 is read everything you can get your hands on. Read a lot.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, but, I do agree that it is good to read, and you will become a better writer from reading a lot. I do agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe that it matters what you're reading.
Yes.
I mean, why would you read a romance novel when you want to write fantasy? I mean, well, yeah, the smarty pants out there will then say, well, it will broaden your horizon, yeah, and you'll learn new things, blah, blah, blah,
you
blah.
Can get good romance subplots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But honestly, I couldn't care less. I want to read what I enjoy reading.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you could also say, well, then you become very biased to the tropes of the genre and so on and so on.
You can expand your
I don't think so. I probably get very fine-tuned understanding of the genre. Mm-hmm. That's what I get. And I don't see the harm in that. And no one said either that I should go off to copy exactly what I've read either. So I still have to be creative with the stories that I'm going to tell. But that advice that I can only develop as a writer if I read outside my own genre, I just don't agree with that advice. I mean, terrible advice.
I agree with you. I did not list this one, but I nearly did. And it's basically for what you said, but also because it doesn't say read good books or I think even if you read it within your genre, maybe it doesn't hurt to occasionally read a book that you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe someone self-published this or published this or it got published because it's just so tropey or whatever, the writing is not stellar. But it really helps to read some really good books by the masters. Read some Neil Gaiman, something really gripping so that you learn from the experts. So I don't think you sometimes go in and you just pick up something on Amazon because you want to read and it's just like, wow, don't just read this. You got to feed yourself you got to eat the salads, you got to eat the healthy stuff. Don't just eat the sugar. So I definitely agree with you. And if we had made a list of 6, this one would have been on mine, but I didn't do it. So far we're not overlapping. So you want to know what
fair.
Yeah, I want to know what my number 5 is?
I do.
All right. My least of the worst, I don't know, is write what inspires you. That advice gets under my skin, and in some ways, I mean, I agree with it. Definitely, if you should absolutely love the story you're writing. It should fire you up. It should be, perfectly, it should be the book that you search for your whole life, and you just really want to read it. But I think too many people misconstrue this one to mean that they should only write when inspired, or that when the story starts to bog down, because you know when you're writing 80, 100,000 words, or a series, 300 to 400,000 words, it's gonna bog down. And then they switch to a new project that inspires them more. And that doesn't work if you're gonna actually, write. I think writing, maybe it should inspire you, but the advice is not specific enough, and eventually writing is not going to inspire you, and you just gotta sit your butt down and write it, or you're never going to finish this book. So that's why the advice drives me crazy.
Yeah, I was just about to add a variation of that one actually to my list, but I didn't. But I could just add that one here, I guess, as my number 6 if I had to, because the variation that I was about to add was the write what you know advice.
Oh, yes.
I hate that as well. Why do I have to write what I know? I'm coming up with fictional stories here. I mean, and I don't know how magic works in real life either. So how can I write that?
Exactly. I will say nothing more on that one. I have no comment.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. So you want number 4?
I want number 4.
Okay, my number 4 is actually one that we sort of touched upon in the more recent episode 91 of the podcast here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we talked about daily word count in that episode.
That's right. So let me guess, it's write every day?
Yeah, it is basically the advice that I hate when I hear, if you want to be a writer, you have to write every day. I mean, what the beep? I think we explained the detail in our different viewpoints in episode 91, so I'm not going to go into all of that again here, but this advice did make it onto my list nevertheless, because I think it is extremely counterproductive to tell someone that they have to write every single day. No, you don't. No. I mean, like I said in episode 91, I think you should be making progress most days of the week at least. This could also be plotting or planning the story. It doesn't have to be actual writing, or maybe you're doing a bit of work on your author business. I mean, of course, you have to be mindful that you aren't using something like world building as a procrastination tool. And I know it is so tempting. I know. But you don't want to get stressed out by the fact that you have to write every day. But of course, you can't come up with excuses for yourself not to write either. So, make progress, work on your novel or your author business, but yeah, don't let it take over your life. I think that's what we said in episode 91 as well.
I think we did. We said you have to have some balance and know that you have, a life and family and other things other than writing, especially when you are trying to balance writing with a career and a family. And yeah, have some time that you set aside to being an author, whether it's plotting or researching or something. But yeah, make sure the story is progressing in some form in your life. But it might not always be writing every single day. I have to agree with you.
I wonder if this one is on your list as well then.
Actually, it's not. But,
no?
So you want to know my number 4 though?
Yes, please.
Well, it's what you had just said. Write what you know. So it doesn't. It's not a true overlap because that was your number 6. But yeah, I basically said the same thing. I mean, what we write is fantasy. So how can you know what it feels like to be a dragon or a weasel or an elf, or how you know how to use magic or be a vampire? So I think the fact that we use our imaginations and the fact that we don't limit ourselves to what we know allows us to create amazing ideas and stories. And I think our genre is often considered like escape fantasy. It's basically there's something in this world that is bothering us or troubling us. And so we write about other worlds and other possibilities. And that's sort of what a lot of readers are looking for. I mean, there is also now urban fantasy that is a huge chunk of the market, but it's still a different version of this reality. It might be set in modern times or the city. I just watched a show that was set in modern times with a parallel universe. So it's still a different version of what we have. And if we didn't expand our minds into the things we don't know but would like to see happen and ask those questions, those things wouldn't exist. So whenever someone tells me, write what you know, I'm like, well, I know I don't like what I've got, so I want to write something else.
And I know I don't like what you just said.
Exactly.
No, but I would even say if we look beyond fantasy, if you are writing, I don't know, let's say a romance or a thriller or whatever, I still don't understand the advice of write what you know. So why is it that you can only, so okay, if well, I think at least last time I checked, I'm a male, so why could I not write female characters, for example?
Exactly.
Or why could a woman not write a male character? It's why do you have to box yourself into, well, this is the kind of things that I know about, so that's what I need to write? Why? I just don't get it.
I 100% agree. And I think I had heard this advice even all the way back in high school. And even then I'm just like, but if I was stuck to what I know, which is growing up in small rural Christian Pennsylvania, I'm bored already. I don't want to box myself into this. I want so much more. I want Hogwarts. So yeah, no, I think it's just really bad advice. So if anyone ever tells you that, just look at them and be like, I'm so sorry for you, and move on.
Yeah, and I would even say to the listener, if you understand what this advice is about, and if you sort of understand the arguments about why it's important, then please let us know. Comment or something, because I would like to understand what the behind lying logic is of this advice, because I just don't get it. And maybe I'm just thick, and that's fine, but then please explain it to me so I get it, because I want to understand.
I was gonna say, it's not just you, it's both of us. We're like, this one's no.
Yeah.
All right, so
Okay.
what is your number 3?
Well, I actually saw George R.R. Martin giving this advice on his website. I don't know if it's still on his website, but I noticed it at some point, and I don't like it.
Oh my goodness, something from George R.R. Martin you don't like? Heathen.
Yes. Yeah, I know I'm walking on thin ice here now.
You are.
This is what I like to do, right? I always put myself in situations where I don't know what's going to come back in my face in 10 minutes.
You're going to hear about this one from some readers or listeners, definitely.
Could be. But the advice is, so he said, quote, "Don't start writing a novel, start with a short story," end quote.
Oh.
And I believe he also went on to say that if you start out trying to write a novel or a series, it is like wanting to climb Mount Everest from day one. And I honestly don't feel that this advice is helpful at all.
I agree with you.
If one wants to write short stories, then by all means, that's great. But why in the world should you force yourself to write a short story if you don't want to? I mean, if you find no enjoyment from short stories, you probably don't even read short stories, I would guess then. Mm-hmm. Then why would you do so? I don't get it.
Honestly, because I think you and I both started with novels. We just dove head on. I mean, I started with a trilogy that's not even published. It's sitting in some moldy drawer somewhere. Yeah, but when I did switch to short stories, I could whip off 120,000 words, not a problem. But to do 10,000? Oh, that's hard. That's really hard. I mean, some people are marathon runners. Some people are sprinters. If you're a marathon runner, you're not going to be a good sprinter. So don't beat yourself up for not being a sprinter. If you're designed to write 500,000 words, then go for it.
At the end of the day, you should write something that you are excited about writing.
Yeah.
And as well, I think I would say that writing a short story is not exactly the same thing as writing a full-length novel. Like you're saying, a marathon versus sprinting there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, sure, a lot of the same knowledge and skills that you will learn from writing short stories, you can transfer over into novel writing, but it's still not exactly the same thing.
No.
I mean, it's so stupid. It's like, you don't start writing a romance novel to learn how to write a fantasy novel, right? I mean, it makes no sense.
No.
Why would you do that?
That's very true. You should, yeah. I mean, I remember feeling overwhelmed. I was starting my first book, and I realized that I wanted to make it a trilogy, and thinking, oh my goodness, should I really be starting off as a trilogy? It turned out fine. It was fine. Challenge yourself. If you want to write as a trilogy, make that your goal. Do it. It doesn't matter if you're a newbie or, you've written 20 books. Go for it.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I started out with a trilogy, and of course I had to rewrite book 1 like 3 times. But
yeah, so did I. But we got there.
Yeah, but who cares? I mean, that's what I wanted to write, and that was what I was excited about. And if you're not excited about it, you're not going to keep up the momentum and the drive to get through it all, because it's a lot of work, and you only realize that once you start writing. And I know our listeners know all of this already, right? But
exactly.
If you think that, okay, George R. R. Martin said that I should write 25 short stories before I do anything else.
Don't do it. No.
You're going to kill yourself even before you get to the stuff you wanted to write.
Yeah. I would be so bored. I mean, short stories are interesting, but they are not my cup of tea, and I'd rather write a novel. I'd rather write a trilogy.
Yeah. So that was my number 3.
That's a good one. That one wasn't on my list. So far.
You see, so far I'm closest to be right at that. Only one overlap.
I know.
Let's see.
Okay. So my number 3 is to get an idea of what dialogue sounds like. Listen to conversations around you. I hate that piece of advice. Every time I hear it, I'm like, just no. Just don't listen to this advice. Because, if you ever listen to people around you, they make no sense when they talk. They're referring to things you have no clue about. They're using, short catchphrases and filler words and tons of filler words and wandering, pointless conversations. And that's not dialogue in a novel, so don't do that. Every word in your novel should have a purpose, especially dialogue. It is writing. It's not a chat with your BFF. So, don't listen to this advice. If you want to learn to write dialogue, read some really good dialogue. Heck, go back to read Greek plays. Plays have fantastic dialogue. Read those. Don't listen to people at a cafe. They are not going to teach you anything about dialogue, except maybe what not to do.
Yeah, I think probably the only thing I would say you could pick up there is maybe not dialogue input, but more like the different way people speak. You could get a bit of inspiration for different kinds of voices. Nice. So that part may be helpful. But I would also say that it's a ton more helpful if you just made a list of your characters and then you sort of said, okay, how do this person react when they're stressed out, when they're happy, when they are angry, and just write down how do they react, and then making sure you have something different in all the boxes. That's 100 times more helpful in terms of building varied dialogue and having characters sound different from one another versus listening to people in a cafe, for sure.
Yeah. All right, so...
I don't have that one on my list either.
Oh my goodness! Oh, unless we have the next 2, I am totally wrong. Oh, all right. We'll have to see. So, what is your number 2?
Yeah, and I don't think you have this one on your list, Autumn, either.
Uh-oh.
And you probably didn't expect it either.
Oh, this is got to be a good one then.
Yeah. So we're getting into the top 2 spots now, so we have to increase the seriousness of the items on the list here.
I should have brought the music along. We have the little tension music playing. Sorry.
Yes, we should have like a drum roll. Okay. It is show, don't tell.
Oh!
You didn't expect that, huh?
Nope. Did not expect that one at all. Darn it.
No. I mean, when you show instead of telling, it does make for a much more engaging and immersive reading experience, for sure, right? So I'm fully on board with that, and I'm not contradicting at all that show instead of tell is important, and it is, from that point of view, good advice, but yet it is not good advice. I guess that requires some explanation.
Yeah, I want to hear your explanation on this one.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that this advice is thrown around so often that you can almost get obsessed about how to perfectly show rather than tell. And there is just no such thing as the perfect writer.
No.
And there are also times in a novel where it is actually okay to tell. You don't have to show all the time. And I think, above all, don't get obsessed about how to do it correctly. I think especially this one advice, show, don't tell, that's one of those things that you put on your list of things that you want to improve over time. Because it is not something that you are going to grasp or internalize very quickly. I don't know. I just feel like this particular piece of writing advice often becomes a stumbling block. And because you start obsessing about how important it is, because it is important in the sense, like I said before, right? It does bring forth more engaging and immersive reading experiences. So it is extremely important. But if you get too obsessed about it, especially in the beginning, you're going to end up in 200 edits of your manuscript and you're not going to get anywhere, right? And I'm sure that this happens all the time. And for that reason, I had to put it on the list. Even though in isolation, it is good advice.
Right. No, I won't disagree with you. And I have nothing more to say on it right now. So,
well,
yeah, that's fine. So do you want to know my number 2?
Yes.
All right. So my number 2 is Just Write, which is sort of like the one you had mentioned before of Write Every Day, but it's a little different. And I won't say I hate it 100%, just that you need to grow out of it quickly, because you and I are both plotters. And I think at a minimum, even pantsers, because I mean, I know I started as a pantser and I still have a little bit of pantser tendency. I'm more of a hybrid. You should take a look at story structure and make a very quick outline of your goals, your themes, your characters, your 7 stages of plot development. And if you just write, just vomit words onto a page, you can end up with such a mess. And you don't even know if it's editing or it's not good storytelling and you don't know why. And that can be just as frustrating as not writing. So that's why I have Just Write. I just think it's, if it's the only way you can get into writing and you have something driving you and you want to write, but then you need to learn to develop your story structure. You need to learn to plot. You need to learn to develop the format of what makes a great story. And you're not going to get that if you just spend your time writing and word vomiting. Oh, word vomiting.
No, okay, fair enough.
All right. So are we
number 1 then?
Are we down to number 1? Oh, geez.
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready. What is your number 1?
Yeah. I have to say that it wasn't easy to figure out which one should warrant the first place spot in this bad list of things.
Oh, see, and that we're different. I knew that was the first one I wrote down.
Okay,
it's
fair.
my number 1 pet peeve. So,
all right, I felt like I had to really think about it because it didn't only have to be a common writing advice that I hate. It also had to be one that I hated more than all the other ones.
Yes, that is very true.
Yeah, this was one that I got hung up on this one when I first started out writing. Because you basically hear it everywhere.
Okay.
I think it's like almost the holy grail of common writing advice. Because it claims to fix your writing and make everything wonderful.
Oh. I have to hear this one. What is this?
Yeah. I'm talking about the advice to remove all your adverbs.
Oh, that one. I ignored that one so fast that I don't even think it exists. So.
Oh, well, that's good on you then, because I think that good writers do use adverbs, and I honestly believe that they do have a place as well. I mean, of course, it has to be done with moderation, and you do need to be careful not overusing the adverbs. But as long as you can find a way to walk that line, please don't do what I did. And when I first started out with my first manuscript, I had come across this advice. So I did a search in my manuscript once I was done and basically started searching for adverbs with the aim to change them all to something else. And it is really not a very productive use of your time.
No, it's not.
And it's not like your writing will get elevated to a godlike status afterward.
No, in fact, you might lose something by doing that.
Yes. So yeah, I think I would just want to say, cut yourself some slack, okay? Don't get too hung up on this stuff here. And I don't know, just because it gave me such a headache when I first started out, so that's what I put on number 1 spot.
Yeah, you know how I got over that one? Because I heard that one too. I was taking a novel writing class after adult education class after work, and it was one of the first things they told me was but then there was someone else who was, doing their manuscript they were reading, and they had used an adverb that I had used and gotten torn apart for, and they were praised for it. And I kind of said, what the bleep? I went home, and this was a mixed class, so I was one of the few fantasy writers there. Almost everyone else was doing memoirs. And so I pulled out all my favorite fantasy writers, Ursula K. Le Guin. I think I even had George R. Martin, because Game of Thrones, the first book, has been out that long. So I had that one on my shelf. I had Mercedes Lackey, all of them. And I photocopied a full chapter. And I went through and I highlighted all the adverbs. I underlined all the adjectives. And then I calculated the average per page. And I said, screw you all. The average is 3 to 5 per page. I'm going to just do that, and you can just take your advice and shove it. So that's why that advice doesn't bother me anymore.
Well, for one, I think good on you. And secondly, that it was so much smarter than what I did.
When you get me riled, ask my husband. Actually, don't ask him. You don't know I don't want those stories public, so never ask him. All right. But yes, that one did really drive me crazy, but it's been so long, and I kind of literally torched it in my brain that I think I'd actually forgotten that one. And I have to admit, if I went back, I probably would add to my list. If I had 7, my 7th one way back would have been to always use said as a dialogue tag. I hate that advice, especially for fantasy writing. It doesn't apply. We use a lot more. That might be work in certain genres, but it does not work in fantasy writing. But that's not my number one. Do you want to know what my number one is?
What is your number one?
It's Show Don't Tell.
Oh,
the only one we have.
No.
Yes.
Okay, but when I wrote in my Show Don't Tell, I was sure that Autumn is not going to have this one on her list.
Oh, that's so funny. No, that is my number one pet peeve, and I think it's sort of because I just didn't. It was sort of like the adverb thing. I just didn't quite understand it. I didn't understand what it meant. People would be like, show, don't tell, show, don't tell, show, don't tell. I'm like, what does that mean? Yeah. What does that actually mean? Fine, give me a definition of that. And it is actually good advice. Like you said, it's when it's explained, it's good advice, but it's also incredibly misleading, because even though it says, if your character's angry, don't tell your reader he is angry. You want to show that she's angry by throwing things and speaking loudly and doing actions. And in that way, it is very good advice, like you said. But there are times, like you said, when you're writing, you do tell. If a character is moving cross country and nothing happens, you don't tell your reader about it. You just sum it up in 2 sentences. They were here, they got to here, end of journey. Perfect. And there's a total current trend I see a lot with new writers, that they feel like they have to show every minute of a character's life. They cannot tell you anything about that character. You can't skip time. And I really don't care about learning about how someone brushes their teeth unless it's important to the story. So there are times when you're writing, you tell. And I've been doing a lot of editing recently, so it just seems like I keep coming across these painfully detailed scenes that are shown of characters doing things, and when you finally finish the story, you're like, why? Just why? Just cut that. Wrap it up. They got ready for work. There you go. That's the whole morning routine. So, yeah, that's my current pet peeve. Sorry. So we had 1, which means you're right. You're the one who guessed we'd have 1 the same. So, damn.
Yes.
You won this one. I don't know what you win, but you won.
I won the honor of being right.
Yes.
That feels good.
All right. Well,
I'm already feeling better, actually.
I humbly bow to you. You are correct in episode. Now I forget which one we're doing. 93. You are correct.
It took almost 100 episodes before I got it right.
That's pretty good, actually. 1 out of 100, so that's not too bad.
Yeah, maybe once we get close to episode 200, then I'll get another one right.
All right. we'll keep
but I guess as well, from a conclusion point of view, I guess since that's the only one we both had on the list, then I guess that's the one we jointly hate the most then, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. I think that is definitely probably our joint painful one. Like I said, I probably would have agreed with you on the adverbs, except that I thoroughly kicked that one in the butt early on.
Yeah. I think that was cool.
Yeah.
I should have done the same thing.
Yeah, well, I even did a blog post about it and shared my results because I was so angry.
I should have read that one then.
You should have. If we'd found each other sooner, that would have been hilarious. But
Yeah.
oh well. So, do you want to know? I actually have 2 pieces of writing advice, and then I have a quote. I did my homework. You should be so
Wow.
proud. I know.
What happened?
It only took almost 100 episodes, but I did homework for this one. All right, so I actually have 2 pieces of favorite advice if you want to hear them.
Yes, please.
The first one is you can't edit a blank page. And I do appreciate that one. Every time I feel like my writing is going poorly or whatever is going on, I just remind myself, it doesn't matter. I need to just write it. I need to push through whatever stumbling block I have because you can't edit something that doesn't exist. So you just need to write it and then you can go back and fix it. So that is definitely one of my heartfelt ones, but one of my most absolute favorite ones that I have kept pasted on my writing space is paint with the words you leave unwritten. Because to me, that symbolizes the magic of writing and the magic of reading is that we're only half the spell and the other half is the reader. So you have to leave room for the reader to take what you're writing and construct parts of it for themselves. And that's what makes a story magical to me. So that one is definitely my favorite piece of writing advice is to paint with the words you leave unwritten or unsaid.
I love that one.
Yes.
I can't top that.
Well, I can end with a lovely quote that is kind of a fun summary to all the pieces of advice that we just have given, but be they good or bad.
Okay, yeah.
And
that
this
sounds
is
good.
from Michael Moorcock. He says, ignore all pro-offered rules and create your own, suitable for what you want to say.
All right, so next Monday we're going to discuss if there is a particular word that you need to stop starting sentences with. That almost sounded like common writing advice.
Oh.
If you like what you just heard, there's a few things you can do to support the Writing Fantasy podcast. Please tell a fellow author about the show and visit us at Apple Podcast and leave a rating and review. You can also join Autumn and Jasper on patreon.com/AmWritingFantasy. For as little as $1 a month, you'll get awesome rewards and keep the Writing Fantasy podcast going. Stay safe out there and see you next Monday.